So I've always been curious about what it would be like to have a dedicated space at home for general media consumption and gaming. So basically, a home theater setup. When I moved into this house about a few months ago, I decided to carve out a section of the basement and make that curiosity a reality. Now, the goal was really simple. It was to optimize the space for the best possible media experience. That meant adding soundproofing, installing built-in surround sound, creating an ultra comfy seating area, and setting up a top-tier 4K projector with a versatile media setup to match. What is going on YouTube? So this is going to be my future home theater setup, which I've cut out as a part of my home studio in my basement. So if you haven't seen that video, you can go ahead and check it out. Before I go ahead and begin adding things to this space, I'm gonna quickly give you guys a recap of everything that's already in here and how it's all set up. So first off, this room measures about 123 square feet, which is not very large by any means, but perfect enough for what I need it for. The ceiling in here has also been dropped in order to accommodate some HVAC system that was up there before. And since this is going to be a home theater setup, that's okay as well. During the development stage, I had them insulate or double insulate the walls and the ceiling in here to make sure that it's as soundproof as possible. So that's one of the most important things that you would want to consider for a home theater setup, is keeping all the sound contained inside the room. That way you really get that experience, and also so you don't have to disturb everybody around the house. For insulation, what I've done is use 5/8 drywall. I've used Sonopan, which is a 3/8 wood material that's designed for soundproofing as well. And I've also used Rock in Wool Safe and Sound. So it's a fiberglass system that is designed to help reduce sound and just general energy loss from the room. Something else I've done here for soundproofing is add a solid core door, which in comparison to the alternative, which is a hollow core door, will prevent sound and energy loss better. I also decided to add some weather stripping material around all of the edges to block any amount of light or air from going in and out of the room. So that way, like I said, we keep everything contained in here. The last thing that I've done in here to improve the sound quality is add some carpet. So instead of using LVP, I decided to go with a nice carpet, soft, and has a different design than what you usually see from the conventional style carpets. Now it's got a bit of a pattern all over it, so nothing crazy, but I think, you know, it works well for this room right here. Now, we don't have much of it in here. I only picked up about 15 square yards of it to fill up the entire room, and it worked out great to fit the entire space with very, very little wastage. The next thing I'm gonna talk about here are the speakers in here. So I've decided to go with a 5.1.2 Dolby Atmos system to create that really immersive feeling when watching movies or gaming in here. As you can see on both sides, I've got the front left and front right speakers, and I've also got the center channel below at the bottom there. Behind the camera there, I've got 2 rear speakers, and I've got some overhead speakers up top as well. So that's 2, 4, 6, 7 speakers in total, and a subwoofer. So the subwoofer isn't in here right now, but I'm gonna have it on this side of the room, just right there. So I've had it all set up there. It's connected or hardwired directly to my server rack on the other side. So everything in here is essentially hardwired to my server rack on the other side, where I've also got my AVR system. As you can see, I've also got some 6-inch tall baseboards here. It really gives the room kind of a more luxurious look, taller look, even though it's already compressed, it gives it that look, which is really nice. So something else to note is the lighting that we've got in here. I didn't do anything special. It's a 14-inch dual bright surface mount kit. Now this kit will allow you to use a dimmer switch to control the color temperature of the light between 2K and 5K. So warm white and daylight white. And I've got a Lutron dimmer switch connected to it in order to be able to do that. Now, check this out. So right here, I can reduce or increase the temperature as well as the brightness while using this light right here. So something that I really like about this light right here, but I don't know how long it's gonna be here. I might end up changing it to something more fancy, something more extra, something that's got RGB in it. I don't know, but right now I think it works out well for this room. For temperature control in here, I've decided to go with a smart vent. So I've got a single 8x8-inch square vent installed up there. So it's a smart vent that connects to the central HVAC system that I've got set up throughout the entire house. This system will close and open the vent on command or on demand, depending on when it's needed. So I've got a little control puck installed on the wall over there to allow or enable that feature. This will allow me or anyone in here to easily tweak the temperature to what they need it to be, and the vent will close and open as needed. I've got a cutout in the ceiling on that side there, which is connected to the bathroom. It's kind of a hatch that will give me access to a powered overhead shower that I've got in there. I know it's something that's not common, but I really wanted to do that, and I needed access to the outlet that powers that in the bathroom. That will be covered up with something so it will blend into the wall or the ceiling there and will not be noticeable. The last thing I want to mention is I've got a flex tube that goes across the entire ceiling to the back there, passing across HDMI cable and 2 Ethernet cables. So Cat6 Ethernet cables and an HDMI 2.1 cable that will allow me to connect the projector to my AVR in the room behind me. All right, I'm not gonna waste any more time. Let's go ahead and put this place together. After planning out the space, I quickly realized there was no way to fit side tables in the room without having to compromise on the size of the couch that I wanted. And trust me, that just was not an option I was even remotely willing to consider. I looked into compact side table options that might work with the layout that I had, but nothing really hit the mark. Eventually, I decided to take matters into my own hands as usual and go the DIY route. While researching, I came across a few very clever setups where people used wall shelves or wooden planks to create DIY side tables. That gave me an idea. I picked up 2 Mosslanda shelves from IKEA, one for each side where the couch would go. These shelves usually come in a few different colors and 2 different length options. For my setup, I needed them to line up neatly with the armrests, so I went with the smaller size. Since I was already going the DIY route here, I figured, why not add some extra functionality too? I found these 3-inch recessed power grommets that come with a built-in 15-watt wireless charger on the surface. The top slides open to reveal 2 AC outlets, a 20-watt USB-C port, and a USB Type-A port. Basically everything that one would need to charge daily devices. I mean, they're technically designed for desks, but this felt like the perfect way to repurpose them. They come in black or white, but I chose white so they blend in seamlessly with the shelves. I also picked up a few 2-inch grommets to create pass-throughs for any cables running from above the shelf to below it, especially since the shelves are going to be mounted flush into the corner. To start, I laid down painter's tape over the section I plan to cut. Then I used a measuring tape to mark out the exact length that would allow the shelves to line up perfectly with the couch's armrests. Once the marks were in place, I grabbed my circular saw and made the cuts. Next up was drilling the grommet holes. I measured out the positions on both ends of each shelf. Larger holes for the power grommets and smaller ones for the pass-throughs. I then went ahead and swapped in a circular drill bit matched to the size of the grommets and drilled through the marked spots to create the holes. With the shelves prepped, it was time to mount them. I started with the right-hand shelf, marking the height on the wall and using a long level to draw a straight guideline across the points. Since the Mosslanda shelf is originally designed to display picture frames, I mounted it upside down to get a flat surface on the top. I mean, it's a side table after all. After installing 75-pound wall anchors, I aligned the shelf, lined up the pre-drilled holes, and secured it to the wall. Once it felt solid on there, I installed the power grommet, screwing it in place. It was a snug fit getting the screw-on piece past the lip of the shelf, but it worked. The pass-through grommet on the other side slid in easily since it didn't require a screw-on mount. I went on to repeat the same process on the opposite side of the room for the second shelf. Once everything was mounted and the grommets were in place, I tested the built-in charging stations and everything worked as expected. I was able to wirelessly charge my key-enabled phone both when the charger surface was in place and when it was slid off. If you know anything about me or any of my spaces, then you know I'm a big fan of ambient lighting. So naturally, that was the next challenge. Since this room was built around using a projector, I knew I wanted to keep the lighting minimal and very intentional. I had some leftover black 90-degree LED diffuser channels from previous projects, so I decided to repurpose them here. Each piece came in a fixed length, so I had to cut them down to fit the vertical space from the top of the shelves to the ceiling. Starting on the right side, I began mounting clips to hold the channels in place. Once I had a good number installed, I slid the channel into the clips and locked it in. Then I moved on to the top piece, which required one full-length channel and another shorter one to fill the remaining space. Before installing that final cut piece, I jumped over to the left corner and repeated the same vertical installation process I did for the right corner, although it was much quicker the second time around. The LED channel kit came with corner connectors that allow for a seamless 90-degree transition, so I used those at both top corners for a clean, continuous flow of light. I wrapped things up by installing the final cut channel on the top side, making sure it joined perfectly with the existing piece using that one's end clip. With the channels fully mounted, I installed the Cobb LED strip that I picked up earlier inside, snapped on the diffusers, and powered it up using a Zigbee smart controller paired with a power adapter. Once everything was connected, I synced the lights to my smart home system, giving me full control over brightness, color, and a whole lot more. Next, I added a black PS5 controller to the setup, placing it on a fast wireless charger that I picked up from Razer a few years ago. I used the pass-through grommet I had installed earlier to route the charger's power cable down to an extension box that I had positioned behind the couch. I also used the same extension box to power the other grommet piece on the right wall. To add a bit of texture to the walls, I decided to pick up something called 3D wall decor panels off Etsy. They weren't like anything that I'd installed before, but with some help from Hannah, we managed to get them all up. Figuring out how to mount them onto the wall and ceiling was definitely the most time-consuming part of the entire process. They didn't come with any adhesive or mounting hardware, and the instructions to install them were not clear at all. The seller suggested using silicone to hold them in place and, if needed, driving screws into the 6 pre-drilled holes on each base panel. That felt a bit excessive to us, so we ended up grabbing some nails from Home Depot and just used enough to secure each piece to the wall and the ceiling. Was it the most optimal method? Probably not, but it did get the job done. The panels are designed to form a 3D honeycomb pattern, and while they didn't quite match my expectations perfectly, once everything was up on the wall, I had to admit that it gave the room a really unique vibe. It also helped the ambient LED lighting stand out more rather than just fading into the plain white walls. We used a mix of white, black, gray, and bronze panels to create some contrast and some visual interest. As for the layouts, we tried our best to create a mirrored look across both sides of the room, which, to be frank, was not easy at all, but I think we pulled it off pretty well. Now, full transparency, the panels were definitely pricey for what they are. Each box came in just one color, and since we wanted 4 different tones, we had to buy a few boxes of each color. That racked up the bill pretty quickly. We considered getting more to extend the pattern, but honestly, the cost was a solid hell no for me. At this point, the room finally had that cozy home theater vibe I was going for, and it was just about ready for the media setup. Before that, there was one last thing that I had to take care of. A DIY fix to cover the ceiling access panel for the shower head power. It definitely wasn't the most attractive feature in the space, so I decided to create a cleaner solution. I had an MDF board cut to fit the space, which I picked up from Home Depot. Then I wrapped a white strip around all 4 sides to hide the raw edges and give it a more finished look. Next, I applied small strips of heavy-duty double-sided tape around the back of the MDF, then added weather stripping around the edge of the ceiling opening. That was mainly to reduce sound and air transmission through the corners. A small detail, but it made sense for a media room setup. Finally, I pressed the MDF piece into place. The tape held it up nicely for now, but I wouldn't call it a permanent solution at all. It's a quick fix until I figure out a more solid long-term option. With that out of the way, it was finally time to install the projector. Since saving space was a top priority, I decided to go with a ceiling-mounted long-throw projector. Now, there are a lot of options for this out there, and I definitely didn't want to settle for an underwhelming viewing experience, so I set a few non-negotiable specs the projector had to meet before I'd even consider it for the room. After a couple of weeks, I decided on the Horizon S Max from XGIMI. Big shout out to the brand for sending over a unit for me to try out. Right out of the box, the projector looked pretty premium and features a built-in adjustable stand with a mounting thread underneath. There's also a power input located on the base right there. One of its standout design elements is the automatic sliding lens cover, which opens and closes to reveal the light source. It's a really neat feature that adds to its already aesthetic gold mist hue. When the cover is in the closed position, you can see the built-in Harman Kardon speakers. Although I wouldn't be needing them for my setup, it's still really nice to have. Also in the box was a pair of batteries, a power adapter, and the remote all having the same gold mist hue as the projector itself. It even came with a Google TV 4K stick, which you get for free with a purchase of the projector. XGIMI also sent out a couple of accessories for the projector, including the ceiling mount and a floor stand. These do not come standard with the projector, but are available as optional add-ons. The ceiling mount also has the projector's gold mist aesthetic and comes in 3 pieces. It has a special compartment that houses the projector's power block inside of it, keeping things really clean. The floor stand, on the other hand, came in 2 easy to assemble pieces and the same gold mist aesthetic, though I do not plan on using it in this case. We moved on to installing the ceiling mount next. The process was pretty straightforward, and all I had to do was secure the power adapter inside its dedicated compartment, then secure the mounts to the ceiling using screws on all sides. I initially tried routing my HDMI cable through the mount as well, but it made the cover not fit properly, so I left that hanging out the back, as it seems the mount's cable management was only designed for the projector's power cable. The last step in the process was attaching the mount's final piece to the projector and then locking it into place on the ceiling. It held up really well, and from there, all that was left was plugging in the power and the HDMI cable. The central control unit for everything going into the projector is the Pioneer VSX 935 AVR, which I picked up specifically for this setup. AVRs have been around for as long as I can remember, and honestly, they're still one of the best solutions for unified home theater media control. That said, they're usually pretty bulky, so there was no way I was going to have one sitting inside the actual movie room. Instead, I tucked it neatly into my media rack right where it belongs. The HDMI cable I connected to the projector feeds into one of the 2 HDMI output ports on the AVR, which is then linked to all 8 surround sound speakers in the room, delivering a full, high-quality audio experience. On the input side, the AVR gives you 8 HDMI input ports, which means I can connect everything from gaming consoles to streaming devices with ease. For streaming, I picked up an Apple TV 4K with an Ethernet port and hooked it directly into both the AVR and my network switch to ensure the best possible connection. Trust me, there's going to be no buffering here. I also brought in my first gen PS5, placed it on the media rack, and connected it to both the AVR and the switch as well. With everything routed through the AVR, I've got centralized control, high fidelity audio, and ultra clean cable management, all without taking up space in the actual viewing area. It's phenomenal, I know. At this point, the room already had that cozy home theater vibe I was aiming for, but the next piece we brought in took things to a whole new level. We decided to go with something called a cloud couch for the seating in the area, mainly because of how unbelievably comfy they usually are. The comfort level of a cloud couch is often compared to what it would feel like to sleep on a real cloud, which obviously explains the name. I've never owned one myself before, but I've always wanted to, so I figured this was the perfect excuse to finally splurge. And yeah, it was definitely a splurge. This couch was not cheap by any means whatsoever, but I wanted to make sure every second that was spent in this room was as comfortable as possible. Cloud couches are fully customizable, kind of like modular sofas you see everywhere now. Taking a room's layout and space constraints into account, we went with 2 corner pieces, 1 centerpiece, and 2 ottomans. It also came with a bunch of soft, oversized pillows, but we also decided to add a few accent ones for a subtle pop of color. I originally considered getting 2 subwoofers for the space, but eventually realized that would definitely be a bit overkill for such a small space. One was more than enough to get the impact I was after. To keep things consistent with the rest of the audio setup, I went with a Polk audio sub. It came in black, which didn't match the white speakers, but honestly, it's subtle enough that it doesn't stand out in a distracting way. Next up on the agenda was setting up the projector and all the media devices I had hooked up to it. As soon as the projector powered on, the first thing I did was pair it with the remote and then went on to connect to Wi-Fi before jumping into the initial setup process. The projector is equipped with autofocus, which automatically sharpens the image projected without needing to do anything manually. There's also a manual focus option if you want to fine tune it, but honestly, the autofocus worked perfectly right out of the box. Next was auto keystone correction, another time-saving feature that adjusts the screen alignment in real time. That alone made positioning way easier. Once that was set, I got into the manual alignment tools to tweak the image just a bit further. It didn't take very long, just a few minor corrections, and then I moved on to one of the most interesting parts of the setup. The projector gave me the option to choose between the new Dual Light 2.0 light source mode or the more traditional tricolor laser mode. Dual Light 2.0 on the Horizon S Max offers higher brightness up to 3100 lumens, a wider color gamut, better contrast, and overall more accurate color reproduction, and also a more comfortable viewing experience. Of course, I decided to go with this new mode to see how it works. Another standout feature is the ultra wide screen mode. Definitely a first for me on the projector. It's a very cool option to have, especially if I decide to bring a gaming PC into the mix later on. The Horizon S Max also comes with something called wall color adaptation, which helps calibrate the projector's colors based on the surface it's projecting onto. I'm currently using the standard white painted wall as my screen, and even then this feature helped refine the color accuracy and improve the overall image quality. After getting through the initial setup, I made a few physical adjustments to the projector's angle, then went back into the settings for another round of auto keystone correction, along with some light manual tweaking. You'll find all the image correction tools like autofocus, screen shift, image zoom, and more right in the settings menu of the projector. But honestly, there's not much that needs to be done manually. Most of it just works straight out of the box. Next, I switched the projector's input source to the HDMI ports connected to my AVR in the other room. A few seconds later, my Apple TV popped up on the screen. No extra setup needed since I'd already configured it beforehand. The projector automatically enabled IMAX Enhanced mode, which was a nice touch. First thing I did was test out how it handled video playback from my Plex server and other platforms. Now, while the video was playing, I realized I hadn't turned on Dolby Vision on the Apple TV, something the projector is fully capable of handling. So I jumped into the settings menu and made the switch immediately. I went ahead and tweaked a few more settings to match my preferences, then continued the clip, this time with Dolby Vision fully enabled. The result? Phenomenal. I decided to test out the PS5 Digital next. I have that hooked up to the dedicated HDMI 2.1 game port on the AVR. As expected, since it was connected to a new display, it walked me through the usual screen alignment and HDR calibration process. After updating the system firmware, I jumped straight into a session of God of War to see how well the projector handled real-time gaming. And honestly, it did not disappoint. The Horizon S Max also has game optimizing features like low latency and a whole lot more, which can be accessed through the settings menu as well. My Xbox Series X hadn't been getting much use in its previous location, so I added it to the media rack to sit alongside the PS5 as well. Just like I did with the PS5, I hooked it up with a hardwired internet connection for the most reliable performance, and then placed an Xbox controller on another wireless charger, stored neatly on the same wall shelf. Once powered on, I optimized the Series X for the Horizon S Max and loaded up Assassin's Creed Odyssey for a quick gaming session. What's a home theater without snacks and beverages? Just outside of the room, within my studio space, I've got a wet bar set up complete with storage drawers and a mini fridge stocked for movie nights, gaming sessions, and everything in between. At the end of it all, the room turned out even better than I'd imagined, and it fully delivered on the purpose that I had in mind for it. Thank you guys for sticking with me throughout this one. I really appreciate it. Let me know down in the comment section what part of the room you like the most. And if you're curious about any of the products I used throughout this video, including the powerful Horizon S Max, be sure to check out the description box below for all the links. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to catch you in my next video. It's Tommy, and I'm out, y'all.